Okay, we just got home from a 4-week trip to Europe, and I'm starting packing. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning, our time, but in Europe it's about 11 a.m., so I feel wide awake. This is the note we put in, just to remind people that we were away, and we did have a shipping delay, although most people do know that. The first things I'm packing are in my office. So these little soaps were in my office. These sold on Bonanza. They're little like guest soaps from a fancy hotel. The brand is Bulgari. They make jewelry and watches and things like that also. And these two little soaps sold for $25 on Bonanza. This is an Indian head penny from 1864. You can see the date there. There's no other identifying markings. Some of them are worth a lot of money if they have certain markings on them of the mint. I couldn't see any markings of a particular mint on this. But I did sell this penny for $25. Now, I just found this penny in a purse. So it was just in one of those little pockets of a purse. And it has a little bit of like gunk on it, some kind of glue. But someone did buy it for $25. This is a beautiful silver tone and kind of a butterscotch look necklace. And I think I had this up for $125. And I got an offer of $75. I've had this up for a while, so $75 is a great offer, and I sold it. This is a little Disney, I think it says... It's like an anniversary keychain with Tinkerbell, and this spins around, which is cool. I know there are a lot of people that are into Tinkerbell and into Disney in general. This was 50 cents at a little thrift store, and I sold it for $23. These are a pair of women's rubber faux fleece-lined rain boots. They're old, vintage, and we've had them for a long time. They sold on Bonanza for $36.99. These also sold on Bonanza. They are Uggs, official Uggs clogs, wooden clogs with sheepskin, and these sold for $50 on Bonanza. This is a lot of 50 bottles of nail polish. They are Deborah Lippmann red silk boxers. They're like a satin matte finish red, really gorgeous. And we stumbled upon, I want to say 800 bottles at this hardware outlet. They didn't know why it got donated to them, but they gave them to us for about 35 cents a bottle. We paid about $300 or so for 800 bottles. And I sold these best offer, 50 bottles for $250, and so that is $5 a bottle. I was willing to do the deal because it was, $250 worth, and that pretty much paid for the entire lot. And they did still have prices on them, the price that they were charging at the store, which was more than what we bought them for. So I just blacked them out. Usually I remove the labels, but there are just so many of them that would take me forever. And in the listing, I do say they have labels on them, blacked out labels. So that's a great sale, $250. This is a totally cheapo Cricut Smartphone. I found it at a thrift store. I probably paid like $1 for it. And I didn't know if it worked, but I took a chance. It didn't have a charger or anything, but I looked at the USB plug, and I actually happened to have one for a device that I no longer own. So I think it's a B to A USB, and then I had a bunch of these that I just use for chargers when we travel. So this probably cost nothing, almost, $1, so $2. I plugged it in, it did work. It still had this person's information on it, so I deleted all that. And I sold it for $40. Okay, here are some random items from our second store. Polaroid 600 film, sealed, never used, $24. There's 10 shots in here. This is a original Villager purse. Very cool. There's a certain person who always buys my Villager stuff and my John Mayer of Norwich stuff. I believe John Mayer designed this because he worked for Villager before he did his own line. And this sold for $60. This is a pair of vintage tights. You can see they've never been opened. Mini look for short skirts, probably from the 60s or 70s. And these sold for $33. These are a set of 8 vintage Dansk table placemats. Made in Finland. They're cotton and linen. They have a designer's name on it. There's 8 of them, which is a very nice set. They look like they've never been used. And I put a high price. I put $125 on these. And we put our stores on sale for a couple weeks, 10% off, because sales were really slow while our handling time was high. And these sold for $112 to a designer in Los Angeles. This is a beautiful set of 4 mid-century floral napkins. And I took a best offer of $20 on these because I've had them for a long time. So that's still a great price, $20. This is a really nice Land's End cotton-lined rain jacket, or slicker, as we call them in Boston. And it sold for $40. I just packed these up and I forgot to show them. They are Ferragamos. They are quite worn. You can see, well, you can't really see it there, but and they're a very small size, 5.5, and they sold for a best offer of $90. This is a nice Eddie Bauer fisherman style sweater with these cool buttons that you can see. Oh, it's falling down. And we've had this for a while. It's a wool blend, and we took an offer of $25. This is a suede Tommy Hilfiger bag purse. It's kind of vintage looking. It's in good shape. It's got a little bit of scuffs and stuff, but it's really clean inside. It's got like a zipper pouch and another pouch. It looks like someone almost didn't use it. There are some scuffs here, but I did show those. And it sold for $36. This is a vintage Dundee Marmalade Crock. I bought these for $1 each. I think I bought like 5 or 6 of them, and this sold for $30. This is a vintage women's wool, kind of tweed overcoat. You can see the label. There's a couple other labels inside. It's really beautiful. Probably from the 40s, and it sold for $120. This is an awesome vintage 70s Eddie Bauer. You can see it says goose down. It's goose down in the middle part. Faux fur. This is probably polyester, so it's definitely 70s women's winter jacket, and it sold for a best offer of $100. This is a nice South Pole brand fully goose down vest, and it sold on sale in our store 10% off for $35.99. This is a 1980s bomber jacket, leather. It is not made by the military, but it's in that style. You can see it's just some generic brand, but it did sell for $99. It's a beautiful pair of men's Cole Haan like tuxedo wedding shoes. Totally gorgeous. Hardly used. Someone probably went to a wedding in them. And we took an offer of $65 for these. Normally I wouldn't take such a low offer, but while we were away, some weeks sales were very, very, very slow. So $65 is still great. This is a new with tags Wrangler Professional Bull Rider brand shirt you know, pearl snap shirt with the logo everywhere. Kind of an amazing shirt for someone who's into this kind of thing. And it sold for $54. These are a pair of men's gum-soled chukka boots. I don't think they're actually vintage. They're just vintage looking. Probably made in China, but still cool. They sold for $36. These are two identical vintage cowboy shirts. Kind of amazing shirts. Dawn Slater Originals. I think I had these up for like $80 each, you know, quantity 2. But I've had them for so long that we just took an offer of $50 for both. So they're going to someone in South Korea. Sounds good to me. This is an 80s members only jacket, all leather, dark brown. Sold for $100. This is a vintage Echo Vandium serrated knife, quite long for bread or ham or something like that. It's got a nice wood handle. Overall, a really nice knife, and it sold for $18. Little LL Bean embroidered with owls purse, sold for $40. A couple months ago, I sold a map of Taiwan, almost exactly like this. This is a map of Taipei, the city in Taiwan, and it sold to the same person for $24. This is a crazy looking vintage purse. It's leather. It's got this kind of fuzzy cowhide that looks like zebra. And the funny thing is, Jay found this at a yard sale on the side of the road. I think we paid 50 cents for it, and it sold for $50. This is a nice men's vintage tie. You can kind of see the pattern. It's a dark green. It sold for $20. This is a cute deck of Winnie the Pooh playing cards that I got in my original big lot of playing cards about a year ago, and they sold for $27. These are a lovely pair of women's shorts, size 2. They're tiny. They have hematite buttons made by Express. I've had these for a long time, a couple of years, but I really wanted a good price for them, and I got it, $34. This is a vintage wool felt women's hat, like a church hat. It's got a ribbon in there. It has this cool sparkly pin, and it sold for $36. This is a cute set of cards that also came in that lot that I got. Author's Card Game and 52 Great Books to Read cards. And this set sold for $24. This is a vintage Carhartt hat. It's got the logo. It's canvas. It's got a couple marks, but it is made in the USA. And this hat sold for $54. People love the Carhartt. We always do really well with salt and pepper shakers. These are solid oak, just cool, funky, modern looking, and they sold for $23. This is a Ralph Lauren women's dark denim dress. Looks like it's never been worn. I had it up for, God, I think $200. But I sold it for $80. Still a great price. This is a very chunky wool sweater with a nice yoke. It is made in Scotland, but it's Irish. I don't know. Definitely from the UK. And it sold for $40. This is a kind of funky 90s Mickey Mouse shirt. It's got some sparkles on it. It's a sweatshirt. And it's official Disney, and it sold for $27. This is men's Izod Cologne. It's about 50% full, kind of a cool bottle, and it sold for $18. This is a depression glass, or Vaseline glass, or uranium glass, green vase. This sold for $45. I think I bought it for $1 or so at my local thrift store. This is what they call an agate glass, or just a swirl slag glass. I do believe it is a lampshade. And this sold for $36. This is a ceramic little like mustard jar that I found in my local thrift store for about 50 cents. It's got a cool logo of Shenango, China, Shenango, in Pennsylvania. It is porcelain, and this sold for $23. We were at an auction last month and we bought a fancy bun coffee maker to use in the farmhouse, and we tested it and it was leaking all over the counter. So it was broken somehow. So we kind of parted it out a little bit. This is one of the parts, but there are several other parts that I kind of took off. Unfortunately, there's a million of these on eBay, so this only sold for $13. But I think the other parts might sell for a little more, so at least it helped pay for the box lot that we bought. This is a vintage Kenmore sewing machine pedal, metal, made in Japan, and it sold for $30 on Bonanza. We bought a whole bunch of patches one time at a thrift store. This was one of them, Lithuania, and it sold for 12 bucks. This is a vintage Wagner ware juicer reamer thing, and it's cast aluminum, but they're not worth very much. I thought that this would be so cool, and it only sold for 26 bucks. That's still a good sale. This is a vintage appliance cord for like a toaster or waffle maker. Sometimes when you find those vintage appliances, they don't have a cord, so people do buy these. This sold for $13. This is a Metropolitan British Police bobby whistle, and it sold for $25. That's a nice sale. It actually sold to someone in the UK. These are a set of 4 kind of Eastlake style solid brass plates for drawer pulls. Like the drawer pull comes through here, and this is like a decorative plate to go below it. Now these were actually on a little dresser that we own, but I replaced the drawer pulls because the original drawer pulls, I think one was missing and several were loose, and they had been tightened so many times that you just could not tighten them anymore. So I knew that things like this were valuable, especially because they're solid brass, and I sold these for $23. This is a little tool. It's a hex tool for taking off cleats on like golf shoes or soccer shoes, stuff like that. And I found this in a bag, like a sports bag, and I figured, you know what, someone has cleats and they don't have a tool. So I put it up and it sold for $11. These are our last pair of Minnetonka knee-high boots, and they sold for $72. These are a pair of super 90s acid wash jeans, get noticed sneakers, super 90s, very trendy. And I took a best offer of $30 on these. These are a pair of Franco Sarto calf boots. They're made out of suede, and they sold for $36. These are a pair of Skechers shape-ups. They're those shoes that have the little round footbed for like Zumba or whatever. They look like they've never been worn, and they sold for $54, which is a great price for a pair of sneakers. These are a pair of solid brass, kind of a nautical star candle holder sconce. They're really pretty. I love them. They sold for $45. This is the other coffee carafe pot that we sold. This one's new in the box. It's a kind of fancy brand, and it sold for $27. So this is a high-end brand of biking pedals and biking equipment. This is just a box of pedals and random clips and stuff. I just kind of sold them as is, but I know it's a good brand. and it sold for $43. This is a 1950s accident reporting kit. It's little rubber stamps. Look, you can see the old phone number there. And you can open it up. It's got this little thing. Hilarious. It's got these little stamps to like show how the accident happened. These little cars. I thought it was so cool. And it sold for $27. This is a very cool handmade little trivet with these little hardwood circles and a handmade handle. And what's even cooler is somebody put their name on it, so you know it's from somewhere in Scandinavia. And this sold for $30. This is a fire department paramedic helmet from Washington, D.C. I found it at a local thrift store for almost nothing, and I sold it for $100. This is an Italian-made mid-century stainless steel colander. It's quite unique. I thought it was totally beautiful. I bought this at an estate sale, a pretty fancy estate sale, and it was caked in grease. It had been, hanging up in someone's kitchen, and it hadn't been used, and it was greasy and dusty. So I really cleaned it up, and I think I had $100 on this because it's quite unique. It's definitely mid-century, and I took an offer of $75. This is a beautiful set of teak made in Sweden salad bowls. There's 6 of them. You can see the markings there, made in Sweden. And they sold for $45. This is a Eureka Easy Clean vacuum. I get these vacuums all the time, like the Dirt Devils and just the handheld ones like this. Because a lot of times at thrift stores or yard sales, people will sell them for like $1 to $5 because they say they don't work. But a lot of times they just need a new belt, or the rollers have been used so much that they are clogged up. And if you just clean them out and replace the belt, which is a very easy thing to do, and it's pretty cheap, a couple bucks for a new belt. If it has the model number on it, you can look it up and order it. This one sold for $40, and the other ones generally sell for between $40 and $50. This one I put up for $40 because there were a bunch listed for cheaper. So I thought, okay, mine's clean, it works, it has all the parts. So I'll put it up for $40, and it sold. This is a box of weight bands for a Soloflex. The only reason we know that is because the box says Soloflex. I don't even know if it says it on the bands themselves. So it was a good thing you can see the box is rough and old, but they looked unused. So Jay bought them, thinking, these might be worth like $50 or something. And it ends up, this many is worth over $100. So I put them up for $125. Our store was on sale, and they sold for $112. This is the U.S. Navy Academy hat. It's in quite nice shape. Definitely official. It might not have ever been worn. And this sold for $72. This is a vintage Girl Scout sash. It's got some great pins and little merit badges. It doesn't really say what year it's from, but I do believe it's from the 70s or 80s. And this sold for $45. This is a super mod 70s, 60s, 70s suede and sheepskin jacket, coat. And I forget how much I had it up for, but we got a best offer of $160, and we said yes. And it is shipping to someone in Alaska. This is the Mattel Thing Maker Creepy Crawlers from 1964. I think we bought it for between $5 and $10, and it sold for $276. And you can see here it's got all the little molds And the plastic stuff, I have no idea if the plastic stuff is still good. This is a little heating element that melts it. And if they're new in the box, they sell for over $300. But I held strong to my price. We got a lot of low offers for about a month or so, and someone bought it full price, $276. This is a vintage stereo viewer for photography. Kind of like a Viewmaster, but older. They don't sell for very much, but I definitely think these are cool. And it sold for $15. But it did sell within a couple days of me listing it, so that's a good sign. This is a box of blank note cards that I thought were kind of cute. Note cards sell really well, surprisingly. They don't sell for very much, but I always love to find kind of like a vintage box of blank note cards. And these sold for $15. Now, when we were going through our, how we call them, boxes of death, we found these two wearing blender tops. And I guess we didn't have the rest of the blender. I don't know where these came from. I don't know if I bought them by themselves. But I have sold wearing blenders before, so I knew that people collected them and refurbished them and stuff like that. So if you're missing a top, you can't really use the blender. So I thought, you know what, there's going to be a wearing blender refurbisher who needs these, and I was right. So we listed these and they sold within a week, and they sold for $23. This is a vintage solid metal tape dispenser, and it says Riverside Foundry. Now it almost looks like, it's weird, it's like handmade. Not handmade, but you can tell that someone kind of like designed it and then molded it, probably at this foundry. So it was a pretty cool find. It sold for $25 to someone in the Philippines. This is a vintage faux leather travel bag, and it actually sold yesterday for $40. This is a little military issued bag, little pouch. Looks like it's never been used. These always sell. This sold for 20 bucks. This is a vintage Singer sewing machine vinyl carrying case, and this sold on global shipping for $40. This is a Bodum mini hot water kettle, super cute. I sell hot water kettles all the time. I don't know why, they're super popular. This one we just listed the other day. It sold for $27. This is another piece of Kenmore pottery. You can see it's signed. Beautiful. And this one sold for $112. This is a very practical, foldable travel iron. I do very well with travel irons and travel steamers. And I find them all the time for cheap. This one sold for $18. This is a vintage Czech military bag. Brand new, never used. It's made out of vinyl, actually. It's got the key. So awesome. We bought it at this liquidation of a military store. Oh, this is leather. Huh, weird. Leather, vinyl. I forget how much we paid for these. $4 or $5 each. We bought like 10 of them, and this sold for $45. This is a pair of vintage kitchen sifters. These are the kinds of things that we get in a box lot. I wouldn't necessarily buy these on their own. They don't sell for very much, but they are cool. This one's pretty massive. And this set sold for $23. This is a vintage Wimbledon wallet. Looks like it's never been used. Totally clean inside. And this sold very soon after I listed it, about a week later, for $23. This is a vintage jewelry box by a department store called B. Altman, which I believe was in Washington, D.C. It's black, velvet lined. It has all these little pouch type things. This lifts out. It is a bit faded. Like, you can see how bright it is here, and then out here it's faded. So that's kind of a bummer. I think I had this up for like $80, $60 to $80, something like that, because it is really beautiful. It's leather. And then I got an offer from a lady, and we kept going back and forth. She offered really, really low, and finally we settled on 40 because it is faded. And you know what? It's a box, and I want it out of storage, so 40 bucks. This is a vintage silverware chest. It's pretty scratched up on the top. I just oiled it, but you can still see the scratches. Inside, it's a little bit hard to see. It's got that anti-tarnish fabric in there. And these sell quite often. This one sold for $50. I would usually sell it for more, but it is scratched up on the top. This is that handmade hamster cage. You can see it's got kind of chicken wire. It's got these cool hinges. Someone definitely made this. Look at, they made the wheel, and it works. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's actually bigger than I remember it. When we got it out of storage, I was like, whoa, the thing's large. So we bought this at an auction for $5. I think everyone was looking at it like, oh, this is so junky. And I just thought, man, somebody's gonna put that on a shelf, or, you know, put some wood shavings in and actually put a little, like, gerbil or hamster in there. And I put it up for $150, and someone offered $100, and we sold it for $100. So I forgot to show this before I started packing it. This is the Crepe Grill. It's got a cast iron top. It just plugs in and heats up. The top was very rusty when I bought it, so I was able to clean it up really well. I wanted to sell this for like $300, but it wasn't worth that much in this condition. So I sold it for $180. I bought it for $35, so that's not bad. But I will show you the box that it was shipped in, because the thing weighs like 35 pounds by itself, and it's like, you know, 18 by 18. It's just a massive thing. It took me, I would say, over an hour to pack it. So I am glad this thing is getting out of my house. So, this is one tiny pile of stuff that's going out today. This is the pancake thingy. Custom made box. FedEx ground. Going to Illinois from Virginia. It's massive. Look at that thing. It's 45 pounds. It's 30 inches by 30 inches by, God, I don't know, 15. Jay and I have to carry it down together down to the porch. But there it goes. It's double boxed, super padded. It's like a big marshmallow. So that's how you got to do it. So this is some stuff that's been selling this week. I'm done packing, thank God. This is a little Walt Disney World trivet, and it sold for $18. Pretty cool. This is a very cool vintage push button salt and pepper shaker dispenser. You can like push the button and it comes in, it's brand new, it comes in this wacky box. And I think we found like 6 of these at the thrift store. Some are pink, some are yellow. This one's blue. And the funny thing is, I guess I put these up for $30 each. But one of them sold for $30. So someone who's into wacky little table accessories is going to be into it. Okay, this is one of those random things that was in our bins of death. We do sell medical supplies quite frequently and for good money, so we find them all the time at thrift stores. This is one of those like breath tests things, so you can see how strong your lungs are. They're really cheap, and I'm sure they just like give them to people at the hospital. But this sold for 15 bucks, so that is not bad. This is a 1936 yearbook from Fitchburg Teachers College in Massachusetts. And this guy emailed me and asked me to look for a particular person in there, which was his great-great-grandfather, I guess. And he was in there, so he bought it. So that's kind of cool that someone could find their relatives through yearbooks on eBay. And he bought this for $30. Okay, this is a very cool little miniature pendant. I think these came in like cereal boxes or something, or you could like order them from cereal or something a long time ago. And this sold for $50, which is a great price. And it's definitely going to someone in Texas. So that's it for this week. And I'll see you the next time we're in town, which is the week after this, with more stuff that we sold.